What's the most disgusting thing you've caught someone doing in your home? My brother Mike crashed at my place after his messy breakup with his girlfriend of 3 years. He seemed totally normal at first, just a guy who needed a room for a few weeks while he got back on his feet and found his own apartment. The first week was fine. He'd wake up, job hunt on his laptop, help with dishes, pretty standard house guest stuff. But then I started noticing this weird smell coming from my spare room where he was staying. It was sweet at first, but also kind of sour and fermented. I thought maybe he'd left some takeout containers under the bed or forgotten about a banana in his backpack. We've all done it, but every time I casually asked about it, he'd just shrug and say he didn't smell anything unusual. But the smell kept getting worse and stronger. My friends would come over and immediately wrinkle their noses when they walked through the front door. "Dude, what's that smell?" they'd ask, and I'd have to make up some excuse about maybe having a plumbing issue or the garbage disposal acting up. I was genuinely embarrassed, but didn't want to kick my own brother out during the roughest patch of his life. After about 3 weeks, the smell was so bad that my neighbor actually knocked on my door to ask if everything was okay. She said she could smell something off, even from the hallway. That's when I knew this wasn't just in my head. The smell wasn't just strong anymore, it was layered. There was the sweet fermented fruit smell, but underneath that was something sour and almost cheesy. And below that, something that reminded me of wet socks mixed with old pizza. I started paying closer attention to Mike's routine. He'd disappear into that room for hours at a time, always carrying these random household items with him. Empty mason jars from my kitchen cabinet, old newspapers. Sometimes he'd take stuff from the bathroom trash can, which I thought was weird but didn't question. Then one Thursday afternoon, I came home early from work because I had a dentist appointment that got canceled. As I walked up to my front door, I could hear this strange buzzing sound coming from inside. Not like electrical buzzing, but more like bubbling, like a fish tank filter, but more intense. I called out, "Mike, I'm home," but got no response. The buzzing sound continued. I knocked on the spare room door. Nothing. The smell was so overwhelming I had to breathe through my mouth, and I could literally taste it in the air. That's when I decided I had to know what was going on. I opened the door and found the most absolutely disgusting thing I have ever seen in my entire life. Mike had turned my spare room into what looked like a mad scientist's laboratory crossed with the world's most revolting brewery. He had dozens and dozens of mason jars lined up on every available surface. Each jar was filled with this chunky, moldy liquid that was actively bubbling and fermenting. But that wasn't even the worst part. As I got closer, I could see what he was using as ingredients for his homemade alcohol. He had been collecting my dirty socks and cutting them into small pieces to add to the jars. Old pizza crusts that he'd apparently been saving for weeks were floating in the mixture like some kind of horrific soup. And I swear to God, there were what looked like fingernail clippings and even toenail clippings scattered throughout the jars. The smell hit me like a physical wall. It was fermenting garbage mixed with alcohol, body odor, and something that smelled like death. I immediately started gagging and had to step back into the hallway. Mike appeared behind me, completely unfazed, and actually looked proud of his setup. He started explaining what he called his revolutionary brewing technique, using natural waste products and organic household materials. He said he'd been researching ancient fermentation methods and believed that adding human essence through worn clothing and body waste would create a unique flavor profile. He had been doing this for almost a month, collecting gross stuff from around the house and my bathroom trash, letting it ferment in mason jars, and the smell had been slowly taking over my entire apartment. The most disgusting part? He offered me a taste of his artisanal creation. I told him he had exactly 1 hour to clean up his science experiment and get out of my apartment. He moved out that night, taking all his jars with him. It took 3 days of deep cleaning and 2 bottles of Febreze to get the smell out of that room.